Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my podcast. My name is Karina, and I'm coming to you from the Pacific Northwest, where I live with my partner. We just celebrated our 17-year anniversary. Our two kitties, Herbert and Harley, and my two horses, Odin and Bragi the Mustangs, which I'm heading out to the barn to feed. It is about 5:45 a.m. Friday morning, Friday, February 16th. Turn on my headlamp so I can see where I'm going. As you can see, it's a bit of a distance between the house and the barn. If you're a returning viewer, you will have seen this view many times. If you're new, welcome. And this is the walk I take every morning, and at lunchtime, and in the evening, and then any other time I need to go out to the barn. So this is our creek. This is the downstream side. This is the upstream side. You can see from that stump, we have some fairly large trees. There's the house. Here's the barn. So yes, fairly large trees that are common here in the Pacific Northwest. I had to duck under a fence. So I've been thinking about podcast content and what I enjoy watching. And I really enjoy knitting content, but I really love the content that other podcasters video about the other parts of their lives, the interesting parts of their lives. Or I should say the other interesting parts of their lives. Some examples, my wool mitten. So a woman, looking at the horses, you probably can't see their eyeballs. Anyway, a woman who lives in Michigan and farms sheep and produces wool. A new one I started watching, The Wandering Stitch. A woman in Maine who does hikes and does natural dyeing. So all that to say, and I'll come up with more as I think about this. I am in the barn, so I need to think about feeding. I will come up with more examples of podcasts I like to watch where there's additional content about, just kind of their ordinary daily routine. And that's the kind of content I'm hoping to provide here with the part about my horses and the other parts of my life. I'm still working, so a good portion of my week is taken up by my job. I work in public health in the environmental health division. I'm still catching my breath, so from walking up the hill and trying to talk at the same time. I knit. Knitting is a major part of my free time, but you'll be aware that I'm not like a super great knitter. I'm not a designer. I follow patterns. I love to do color work. Just kind of walking up the barn because I hear the horses coming in. There's Odin the Mustang. Hi, handsome boy. So anyway, I just wanted to share this part of my life with you, and Odin would like me to get feeding, so I'm going to do that. Okay, the horses are fed. Bragi's looking at me. It is now about 6:15. I'm gonna walk up back to the house. Friday's normally my day off, but I am gonna work for a while, and I think I have to be at work at 8, and I work from home mostly because I'm a wastewater planner in the environmental health division of the public health jurisdiction I work for. But anyway, I was going to talk to you more about podcasts that have other aspects of their lives that I really enjoy. Another one I enjoy is Fiber Trek, another podcaster from Maine. Fiber Tales from Denmark. She is a knitwear designer. So I also enjoy those podcasts a lot. I also like Italian podcaster I think her name's Martina, and hers is My Wild Knitting Podcast. The Kreya Bea, who is a very prolific knitwear designer from Edinburgh, and Ancestral Craft, also from Edinburgh. So not all of these podcasters podcast all the time. I also enjoy British podcasters like the Baker Bears is my favorite. Arnie and Carlos, of course. And if you watch Arnie and Carlos, you will know what I mean. So those are some examples of my favorite podcasters. I have a list of podcasters in the show notes. So I just came up another hill, so I'm out of breath again. And I also have my Horsemanship podcast. So Karen Rolfe, hers is mostly audio. For at least the free version, she does have a paid kind of instructional video series that I do watch. And Shauna Corinne Karish is also another horsemanship one I really enjoy. So those are some examples of podcasts I really enjoy that have non-knitting content. And I also really enjoy gardening. Look, you can see some of my mittens in the window that I knit. Gardening podcasts, Grow Veg, another British one. Gaz Oakley from Wales, he's a chef, and Charles Dowd. So, speaking of gardening, this is my stash of cardboard I need to break down for establishing new no-dig gardening beds. So I am going to leave this right here for now as I go into the house and get ready for work. Hi again, everyone. I am really going to mix up the content in this podcast today. So I wanted to point out wrong way. They're the roses. So 17 roses for our 17-year anniversary. It's from my partner Randy. And then I got him a little bottle of tawny port and some chocolate, which I hope we will enjoy very soon. So I was talking about just doing things other than knitting in podcasts. And one of the reasons why I really enjoy that is because my favorite thing to do, especially first thing in the morning when I get up, is knit and watch podcasts. And I don't always want anything terribly complicated or instructional. I just want to be entertained and just be able to knit, which is what I'm going to do right now. I might as well show you what I have been working on. So I have been working on this cowl. It's a scarf. The pattern's for a scarf, but I decided to turn it into a cowl. This is by Pacific Knits. The scarf is a Colorwork motif, and the scarf itself is about 5 feet long. A while ago, I decided I didn't really want to knit 5 feet worth of scarf, so I am going to turn it into a cowl, an infinity cowl, which is a little bit longer. So it has a invisible cast on, which I'm actually pretty proud of, but I'm gonna have to rip that out in order to make it a cowl because I'm gonna have to seam it together. So what I will likely do is rip out most of this color, maybe leave an inch just for a joining edge. And then let me show you the motifs. So this one you can see is reindeer. I'm gonna repeat this motif because I think it's really cool, and I'm gonna do it with a dark background in white and not use a variegated or a self-striping yarn. The self-striping yarn is by Polka Dot Creek. No, that's not right. It's by Freckled Whimsy, and I think the colorway is Dumbledore's Army. So, and then the next is snowmen. So you can see the snowmen are in white with the self-striping background. And I think I'm gonna repeat that one as well. And I'm gonna do a white background with a solid color snowman. And then have kind of windows, get into like trees and leaves. Some of these have baubles, which I'm not that fond of, so I'm not gonna do that. And then getting in kind of some of the wintry and snowy, and more like kind of Christian symbolism, because there's some crosses coming up here. I just saw one. I think, yeah, this will look, when it's more blocked out, it's hard to see, but those are crosses, those blue, these things here. And then more snowflakes. I'm using primarily scrap yarn. So this is a very scrappy project. So here you can see the snowflake motif. And this was a really fun one. I just finished cups with hearts. And then I am starting another kind of leaf motif with the white background. I think the reason why I said Polka Dot Creek is because the white is an undyed skein of Polka Dot Creek that I got with an Advent, a mini bundle. So some of these are minis and many of these are scraps. So I'm planning on doing, I think when I measured this yesterday, it was 32 inches, and I think for an infinity cowl, it's supposed to have 44. I may not get that quite that length, which is fine, because I mean, even now I can wrap it pretty well around my neck, although I suppose if I want to wrap it twice, I'm not really sure I want to do that. So I don't know. I'm going to finish the motifs that I want to finish and then think about it some more, how I'm really going to put this together. So these are fun. I really like Pacific Knits Doodles. That's what she calls these. She calls these doodle cowls with different themes. I have another one that I want to, actually I have several. I have, let me see, this one is an ocean themed one, so it's octopus. I have some Pacific Northwest themed ones. I have cryptid themed ones, so there's like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, so that's really fun. Make sure I get all that put in. I don't know if you can hear Herbert, he's meowing. He has to make an announcement when he goes to the litter box, and that's what that's what he's doing. So the other project I've been working on, I have no finished objects for you today, but the other project I've been working on is this Riverside sweater that was supposed to be a bottom-up sweater, and if you have been following along, you will know that I didn't like how much red was in the original one I did, so I ripped up pretty much up to the where the sleeves are joined, up to about this section here, and then no, I think I left that section, and then started knitting the motifs in a different color pattern or color scheme than what was originally called for. So I pretty much had it finished, and then I ripped out and had to think about this going top down. So because I wanted it more brown, and I think I have achieved that. So I am almost done. I'm on the last Colorwork section, which is a diamond pattern. So it is the same as this diamond pattern here, except it's going to have the brown background and red diamonds. And then I'm going to do the ribbing in brown. So the brown's a natural color from local sheep farm. This light cream colored is 2. It is also from the same sheep farm. The red is a Patons worsted. So the other modification, well, let me point out that the sleeves are different. So this was probably the original as prescribed in the pattern. Is that right? I did them differently. No, this one is the one I modified. This one is the as prescribed. So lots of red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rip out, right now these are 3/4 length sleeves, and I would like them more bracelet length. So I'm going to rip out the ribbing and then just add a couple more sections, maybe these kind of color change sections, and do decreases as well. So I'm done with the color work. I don't want to try to figure out how to do the color work with the decreases, so I'll just do these alternating purl and knit sections to lengthen the sleeves and do decreases so it fits down on my forearm. So that is that sweater. I may have this done before March 1st. That would be super exciting, wouldn't it? So let me put that away. The Riverside sweater is a pattern. I believe this was a free pattern. Silver Screen Knits Volume 2, and it is based on a 1950s Sophia Loren movie. So that is that. And then I have not made a lot of progress on this sock. So this is a cable sock made out of Patons Kroy yarn. It's the yarn that's prescribed. It's out of this book, 52 Weeks of Socks by Laine Publishing. And I'm doing the first, it's called Intersections, the first pattern in this. Here it is. So if you're new here, I'll let you know that I actually had this sock. This is a toe-up sock, which I normally don't do, but I decided I was going to follow the pattern rather than just re-engineer it. So I did for the small size sock because I have kind of long, skinny feet, and my gauge was spot on, but the sock, I finished it up past the heel turn and it was going up the leg, and I tried it on and it's like, oh, the sock's way too big. There was some positive ease. And with socks, you probably already know this, that you really want negative ease for your socks so that it fits snugly and doesn't like bunch up in your shoe. So my gauge was on, and I noticed that the foot circumference measurements for this was 9.5 to 10 inches. I measured my foot. My circumference of my foot is 8.5 inches. So like I said, I have kind of long, skinny feet. And so I ripped it out, and since the pattern didn't have an extra small, I had to do some adjustments. So I cast on based on what I wanted the end circumference to be. So for the small sock, what you end up with is 64 stitches, which is really standard. The socks that I typically knit are either 60 or even 56 stitches around. So I think what I ended up doing was dropping it down to 56 because of the cable pattern. It really needed to be in 8, a pattern of 8, which ended up not being true because of the way the cable is. No, that's not true. So it is 8 around, except when you divide 56 by 8, you get 7, right? So ideally that would be 7 repeats, which would be fine if you're knitting the cable all the way around the foot. But the foot is always plain, almost always plain, at least the sock patterns that I knit. So that means that when you divide 56 by 2 to have the top of the foot and the bottom of the foot, that's 28, which is not divisible by 8. So I had to adjust the pattern so that the cable repeat was a 7-stitch repeat. So I know in an earlier segment I said that I'm not an expert knitter. I follow patterns almost to the letter, except when I make mistakes. I guess I have learned in the last couple of years that sometimes I have to make adjustments to make things fit properly so that I will wear them. Otherwise, I end up ripping them out. Which, by the way, the Riverside knit, that is part of a make-along cal I'm doing, or an unmake-along cal I'm doing. So it's a Frog My Knits 2024. It's a hashtag if you follow me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is CMEQNOMAD, so CMEQNOMAD. You can tag me with that hashtag. So again, hashtag Frog My Knits 2024. And the purpose of it is just to provide some inspiration, some motivation, and maybe some accountability to take apart the knits that aren't giving you joy, that you know you're not going to wear, because there's just so much time and effort and money, frankly, that goes into these projects. We might as well love them. So I am becoming a lot more zen about undoing my knits if they aren't working for me. So I definitely have socks that are a little bit too big, don't have enough negative ease. So I'm really focusing on yarns that I know fit my foot. Patons Kroy is a great, it's kind of a heavier fingering weight. And I'm using a little bit larger needles. Typically I use size 0, which are 2mm needles for regular fingering weight socks. For Patons Kroy, I am using Flexi Flips. And these are 2.5mm or US size 1. So, which is also the reason why I'm having to do the reduced number of stitches. So this is the yarn I'm using, Patons Kroy. The colorway is Blue Raspberry. It's easier to see on the bottom side than the well, you can see it on the top side, but there's some neat flex and stuff in there. So it's been really fun to knit this. So I was thinking that I was going to knit while I spoke, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm actually going to finish up this segment by telling you what I'm wearing. So I'm wearing it's a Berroco cable. Sorry for the lighting. If I turn that light off, it would be completely dark. It's a Berroco free pattern called Crossvine. It's made out of a chunky Berroco Ultra Alpaca. Well, now Harley's meowing, so it must be playtime for them. Normally I'm at work by now, so I don't always witness this. Anyway, this is an all over cable pattern, except the sleeves are plain. I think the colorway is emerald. I made the sleeves a little bit too long, so I like them bracelet length rather than kind of, whoops, sorry, down here. I do like it a little bit snugger, but it's fine since I roll these up a little bit. I just always have to use my hands for something, so I don't like having sleeves in the way. I do like 3/4 length sleeves, but it's just a little too cold right now for that. So, but a lot of times I do wear my sweaters like this. So on that note, I am going to, it's light out now. I am going to go back out to the barn to let the horses out of their breakfast pens. So I do separate them at breakfast time so that there's no food competition. And also I'm trying to encourage my younger Mustang, Bragi, he's 5, to be more independent. He is really dependent on Odin for leadership. And someday I would like to ride Bragi, but he needs to be less attached to Odin and understand that he's going to be okay if he is by himself. I mean, he's not like completely separated from Odin because Odin's right next door. They have a fence lane between each other. Odin is 12 this year. I've had him for 6 years now because I got him when he was 6, when he was barely under saddle. I got him through a Mustang adoption program. He had 100 days of training and so that I had to finish out the training, including kind of reintroducing him to the saddle and a rider and stuff like that, and carrying a rider. So he was on the range in Eastern Oregon until he was 6. So he was gathered and gelded in January of 2018 and vaccinated, and then shipped. Actually, yeah, okay. So he was in the Burns, Oregon Bureau of Land Management corrals for a very short time. He was picked up by an approved trainer, Mustang trainer, in Northeast Oregon, and basically put in boot camp. So when I think about his life, I think for the most part he's had a pretty good life. I mean, living on the range and finding your own food and competing with other horses for food and competing with other horses for maybe some mares, to having your own herd, getting chased off by other stallions, a life like that. It sounds hard. It's the life he knew. And then to be completely plucked out of that and herded into a corral, likely, with other herds of Mustangs who may not have been his friends, herded by helicopter, which is scary, into a corral where now they're trapped with who knows how many horses, 100? I'm just throwing out a number because I don't really know for sure, but a lot. And then zhushed into a trailer with maybe 10 of his friends or not friends, taken to the BLM corrals, where they are like I said, vaccinated. They are put in a chute, where they are sedated, vaccinated, and gelded all at the same time. And then maybe get a little bit of breathing room for this new environment where basically they're in jail. They're in jail for no wrongdoing, until someone picks them up and decides that they are going to train them in a manner that they can cope and get along in a human world. So all of that happened between January and July of 2018 when I adopted him. And he was fairly domesticated when I got him and brought him home. And quite honestly, I think he was really grateful to know where the food was every day, 2 or 3 times a day, where the water was all the time. And he didn't have to compete with other horses. He had other horse friends, but he didn't have to compete. They were his. So the neat thing about Odin being a 6-year-old, he was an adult, but in some ways he was still kind of a baby. He had a very well-developed sense of self, which is really, it's given him a lot of confidence. He is able to be by himself. He is able to be without other horses. He doesn't mind if he and I go riding without Bragi or without other horses. Sometimes when we're on the trails and we're by ourselves and we come across other horses, sometimes he's like, hey, I want to go with them, especially if they are horses that we have ridden with before. So that's kind of funny. But I say, no, we have to go the other direction. He's like, okay, we're going to go in the other direction. And then I just remember when I first got him and I went to, I was being like a 12-year-old horse girl, and I went to like kind of snuggle his face. He was like, oh my God, what are you doing? Are you going to eat my face? But now he sticks his nose out because he wants to be snuggled. It's really sweet. Bragi had a very different experience. Bragi was probably around 6 to 8 months old, maybe a year, when he was gathered in 2018. He was gathered in fall of 2018, and he and Odin are from different herd management areas. So Bragi's more from central Oregon, whereas Odin's from eastern Oregon. And Bragi had a similar experience in terms of being herded by a helicopter into corrals, into a trap, with probably 100 of his friends and not friends, and who knows where his mother was, and then taken to the Burns Oregon corrals in eastern Oregon, where he was sedated, vaccinated, and gelded also. So one of the main differences with Bragi is that, there's more than one difference. One, he was much younger. He didn't have the benefit of being raised in a natural herd environment and understanding the rules of a herd, and being forced to be independent when he got, I don't know what the word is, excommunicated is the word I'm thinking of, but I don't think that's the right word. When he was told to go find his own herd, like Odin would have been. Odin would have been kicked out of the band and said, okay, you're old enough, you need to go find your own herd. Herbert is still meowing. I don't know if you can hear that. I don't know what he's talking about. Anyway, and the other thing about Bragi is that he was in the corrals for, let me see, I got him in 2020, so he was probably picked up from the corrals in maybe January of 2020. So he was in the corrals for at least a year. So, it's an environment where all the geldings live together in one big pen. The mares and their foals live together in another big pen, and they have them kind of segregated by age groups, which is a good way to do it, by gender and age group. And that's a good way to do it. They don't get any handling, though. They just get really fed. I don't know if they get like routine vaccines after their initial vaccine. I don't think so. Anyway, so he was picked up by another approved trainer in Oregon, a different one. This one was more closer to Portland, and just had like 30 days of training. So and met the minimum standards of, he can get in the trailer, he can have his feet picked up, he can wear a halter and all of that, which is fine. He will do that for that person because that person worked with him every single day. The reason why I got him in 2020 is because I lost my other horse in February of 2020, and Odin was all by himself here. And horses are herd animals, and they need their herd. Where they are in that back pasture, they can't even see other horses. So if we had a neighbor that had a horse, or he could at least see one, I would have been okay of him not having a companion. But it's very hard on horses to have to be on the lookout for predators. We do have predators around here. They're probably not a huge threat to horses. We have predators like mountain lions around here. Not too much of a threat to a 1,200-pound horse, but they don't know that. They have evolved knowing that they are prey animals and that their greatest danger is a predator, which, by the way, humans are predators. So all that to say, after I lost Beach, my ex-racehorse, retired racehorse, I wanted another Mustang because Odin was so wonderful. And so I adopted Bragi. And when you adopt a horse, so I won Odin at an auction, and paid a significant amount of money for him, probably not, in tens of thousands of dollars, but I paid a few $1,000s for him, which is actually pretty inexpensive for a horse that's under saddle that's as good quality as he is. Bragi, since he only had that bare minimum of handling, the adoption fee from the Bureau of Land Management is $125. So I paid more to have him shipped up here and to buy a round pen to keep him safe in than I did for him. But that's typical. So all that to say, Bragi just did not, and he was maybe 2 when he got here. He was probably born sometime in 2018, and so now he is going on 6. And he really doesn't have a good sense of self. So he, like I said, he still very much relies on Odin. He is a very slow learner, and he gets very attached to certain ideas about how he thinks the way they should be. I'm not sure I said that right, but he gets very attached to that idea of how things should be. And all he wants is just to hang out with Odin, and he doesn't want to do anything scary. Well, to live in a human world, we need to introduce them to things that may be scary to them, like getting in the trailer again, which was a horrifying, terrifying experience the first time he did that. So just gently teaching him things that are going to make him nervous, but help him understand that he's going to be okay. So I talked a lot longer about than I really wanted to. Now I really need to get out and let the horses out so I can get to work on time. So I will, this is the end of the knitting portion. I do have my trainer's coming out today to work with Odin, and I'm going to have lunch with a friend, so I may have a little bit of follow-up chattiness to do. So I hope you have a project. And I will also include some photos from the trip that Randy and I took for our anniversary last weekend to Wenatchee, and did some bike riding and some hiking. So I'll see you soon. Well, I'm back. Here's the walk out to the barn in the daylight so you can see the creek. Beautiful, big, beautiful cedar tree. So I had some more thoughts I probably didn't explain very well about Mustangs getting gathered off the lands. There's a concern about overgrazing and ruining habitat and competing with the ranchers who raise beef out there. It's fairly controversial. I don't get into that. The thing that most concerns me is that domestic horses have a much longer lifespan, and it's important to teach horses, if you're going to take responsibility for them. There they are, waiting for me. To teach them how to get along in the human world, because horses that don't know how to get along in the human world, bad things tend to happen to them. We don't have slaughterhouses in America anymore, but that doesn't mean that they can't be shipped to Canada or Mexico. So, hi cuties. Bragi is really kind of waiting. He likes this game that we play that I'm trying to teach him about getting in the trailer. So the idea is that he sidles up next to that barrel and he touches it. He's really sensitive to touch. So letting him know that if he touches the barrel with his hip, it's okay. Anyway, I'll finish my story. So it's just important for horses to be able to get along in a human world in order for them to have a good outcome and have long, healthy, happy lives. Mustangs in the wild live to an average of 7. Domestic horses can live till they're 30 or more. So And I think that is the route that they would choose to live. So I try to give them, I try to enrich their lives with games and interaction, but not too much work, and companionship. So anyway, here's part of the trailer training game. So Bragi targets the cone, moves his hip over to the barrel, and that kind of replicates somewhat getting in the trailer and being in a kind of a squeezy space too. So we're working on that. So I'm gonna get to it. Hey everyone, this will be my final segment for this vlog or podcast. I just returned from lunch with my friend who's a horse person, and it's getting actually kind of late. It's almost time to feed the horses here soon. So I don't know how hungry I am going to be for dinner, but I wanted to share with you two things. One is knitting related and one is horse related. I had a great lesson with Odin earlier today with my trainer. We just worked on cleaning up some signals, working in the round pen, and I think it was really great for both of us. And at the end, Odin kept following me around, which is always a great indication that they want to continue to be with you even after the exercise is over. The other thing is that I wanted to share is that I did find some time to knit a little bit earlier today, and I have started on the gusset on this toe up sock. So that is it for this podcast. I am going to share some pictures of our trip to Wenatchee this last weekend. So it'll be bicycling and hiking, bicycling around the Columbia River and hiking near Banks Lake, up Northrop Canyon, which is a former homestead. And there, what else is interesting about this is that you'll see a whole bunch of old rusted tin cans, and those are from when the dam was built in the Grand Coulee Dam that's on the Columbia River. And on that note, I bid you a fond farewell and hope you enjoyed this. Hope you got lots done on your project, because I was very chatty today, and I will see you next time.